Alrighty guys, what's going on? So today in this video, we are going to be talking about, this is in-depth episode I think 5, and we are going to be talking about the lure that started my bass fishing topwater obsession, and that is the Heddon Tiny Torpedo. The old one. This one here is an old one. This is like original. My dad bought this back when he was my age. This lure is somewhere between 25 and 30 years old. So this is an old school lure for sure. I caught my first ever topwater lure fishing bass with it, and we are going to be talking about the best ways to fish it here in this video. So I've actually filmed this video twice already, actually once, and then I tried to start it and forgot to turn the camera on. So I've been out here for about an hour messing around trying to film this video right, and I've had 3 bluegill follow it and 2 bluegill blow up on it. No bass blow ups yet. The main problem with fishing this bait right now in this pond is all these seeds. I'm sure you guys can see them. They're not hard to miss. They are very, very hard to get a treble hook bait through, or really any bait. I mean, it's even hard to get like a Senko through it and stuff. I've tried to fish this type of stuff before with like weightless worms. It's not as easy as most people would think. So the best ways I like to fish it, now I'm going to be talking about multiple different ways of fishing it, and some of them aren't my favorite, but I've seen them catch fish, so I'm going to talk about them anyway. So my favorite way of fishing this bait is slow, and I'm sure you guys know that like fishing a popper and stuff, it's pretty slow. It gets annoying how slow you can fish a popper sometimes. Well, I fish this thing even slower than that. This is probably the slowest topwater bait I fish, and it can be really time consuming sometimes because you're sitting there and you're waiting on the bass to come up and hit it. But I've had some, I think it was actually my first weighed 3-pound bass I caught on this back when I very first started throwing lures and catching bass. I was using this around a willow tree. I cast it underneath the willow tree, and I was going just like this right here. I'd cast it out and just go, just barely even moving it. Like it's barely even making a wake in the water. It's moving so slowly. And I actually caught my first certified weighed 3-pounder on it. And this, like I was saying earlier, this is the bait that I basically, it started the obsession of bass fishing. Because how that happened, I'm sure you guys have watched the topwater video. I'm pretty sure I told that story in that video. But what happened was I was out bluegill fishing with my uncle and my dad, and they were all catching a bunch of bluegill. I wasn't catching anything. Well, we were seeing bass blow up over on the other bank, and my dad was like, hey, since you ain't caught nothing, take this little black and white topwater lure and go over there and move it real slowly across the top of the water and just wait for a blow up. And I was like, okay, whatever. You know, I didn't really care. I was so bored and mad that I wasn't catching anything. I honestly just didn't care anymore. Yeah, I do apologize if you guys can see those gnats. They're really annoying out here right now. It is very humid. But anyway, so I was like, you know what? I don't care anymore. I mean, it's better than just sitting here in a chair and being lazy. So I walked over there, and I was like, okay, whatever. I walked over here, and I made a cast just like this down the bank. And first cast, I think it was my first or second cast. No, it was my first cast because that's what kind of got me into it real quick. Was my first cast, I had a big blow up and I caught one. And I was like, whoa, dang, that was pretty cool. And then when I went to make another cast, I got thinking, hey, I don't even have to rebait my hook. You know, that was the one thing that I cared about. I wasn't even caring about like the giant blow up I just had. I was more worried about, hey, I don't even have to rebait my hook. Cool. Because that was one thing that I always had problems with bluegill fishing, was I'd rig my worm onto the hook, and then when I casted, the worm would just fall off. And that's something that always annoyed me about bluegill fishing. So not having to do that was a score. It was a score for me. And then, you know, just catching them bass, I ended up catching 4 and having probably maybe 6 or 7 blow-ups. And I was like, this is actually pretty cool. So then I started doing some Googling and research and stuff on it. And I started seeing, like, the Rebel Popar was one that I really seen a lot of. I've seen a lot of pictures of it when I would, like, Google bass lures and stuff. I was like, hey, you know, that's pretty cool looking. So I went to Walmart and I went over to the, there's like a bottom shelf on the fishing aisle. And there was this, like, 4-pack of Rebel lures. There was a tiny little crawdad crankbait, a little, a cricket crankbait, another little crawdad crankbait, and then there was a Rebel Popar. And I was like, hey, you know what? For 10 bucks, 4 lures, that seems pretty good. And it still is. It actually is a really good deal. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get that. So I bought that, and then I bought some Hoolie Poppers. And I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go out this weekend, and we're going to see if we can catch some fish. So we went out that weekend, and I caught a bunch of fish. And I was hooked from there, and just spiraled down to the point where my tackle box probably has well over $3,000 in it, and probably weighs over 40 pounds. So yeah, it went from just, you know, fishing a little topwater torpedo because I couldn't get the bluegill to bite, to, you know, having lures that are like almost 20 bucks. There's a squirrel, I think, fell out of that tree. You know, having lures that are nearly $20. So, I mean, it's pretty cool how it went from little, you know, fishing this because I couldn't get a bluegill to bite, to, you know, owning almost $20 lures and $50 reels and all that. But anyway, so some of the better ways of fishing it, I've seen a lot of big bass caught this way. Basically what you do is you cast it out and you just reel it really quickly. There's no slow rolling when it comes to this type of fishing. You reel it quickly across the water and the bass come up and nail it. I've seen some giant bass come up and hit baits, more specifically baits this type of bait. It's got some them seed things in the propeller. Ooh, heard a bluegill bust somewhere. I don't know where though. But you guys hear that little metal kind of a tinging sound as the blades are spinning. You guys hear that noise? That is the noise that them bass hear. And I was sitting one day and my dad was fishing the other one that he has, and I was fishing a frog, and I hear this noise and I look over there and all of a sudden the water around that bait just exploded. And I tell you what, it looked like somebody picked up that log right there and just threw it in the water. It was a very big explosion, and he ended up missing the bait, completely missing the bait, and we couldn't get the fish to bite again. I was throwing a frog in there and nothing, and he was throwing that little tiny torpedo in there, and we just couldn't get it to bite again. But I say just off of the blow up itself, it had to be at least 4 to 5 pounds. It was a very big explosion. Just reeling it just like this here, and it just exploded about halfway through the cast. But like I was also saying, you know, the little short movements, just like that right there. You guys can see that bait out there. Just like that, then little short movements make it look like a little cicada or locust, whatever you want to call them, sitting on top of the water, and them bass just come up and bust on it really good. They hit it, and they don't play around when they hit this thing, because they hit it pretty hard. So yeah, I hope you guys like this video. It's not as long as some of my other in-depth videos. This was kind of just a thrown together video. I didn't really know what lures to do an in-depth video on. It's too grass, or there's too much stuff on it to do a walking bait video like I wanted to. So if you guys have any suggestions for an in-depth video on like a soft plastics or whatever, let me know, and I will probably end up doing them, because I'm kind of out here messing around trying to think of lures to make a video on. So Thanks for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Bye.